What's going on, guys? This is John Hasselbauer from The Lines. Excited to be talking through some of the content this week. And something that we are going to try to do more often is taking the article preview content that I write each week and sort of giving it new life on YouTube or on video content. A lot of the times I write my thoughts and I don't actually get to expand on it for the rest of the week. So I think this will be good for me to kind of touch on some of the pieces of my content that maybe I didn't get a chance to touch on when I wrote it, or maybe I wrote it and published it and realized, I didn't really get to expand on that. Excited to give this a whirl and do it more often going forward. So kicking off with the WGC Dell match play. This is, I believe, actually the only WGC that we get this year in 2022. They did some adjusting with the schedule. So the appeal of WGCs is that they are stronger fields, limited fields, and more payout. So that should attract the best players in the world. And we'll get to that as we scroll through it. But for this preview article, this is going to be everything that you need to know about Austin Country Club specifically. There are some nuances to this course. We don't necessarily see the stats that sort of show that. But it's a quirky course. It's a P-tie course. So there are some trends that we can pull out of that as we try to pull together our own brackets. So yeah, just getting into, I guess, the top of the article here. It is sort of a transition in the golf space to sort of capitalize on that bracketology. I'm sort of streaming March Madness right now and get the impression that my bracket will be officially busted within the next 10 minutes. So it's perfect timing for me before we get to Sweet 16. You get a brand new bracket to fill out. It's a field of 64. Pretty fun format for the PGA Tour. I'm definitely in favor of not having stroke play every single week, and this sort of switches it up so that the Ryder Cup and the President's Cup are not the only times that we get to see 1v1 match play. So definitely looking forward to that this week. And then just going into the favorites. So actually was not expecting to see odds up this evening, and we're recording this Sunday evening. So this what we're seeing from BetMGM is before the group play is announced. So if you see this right away and you think, I don't care who Justin Thomas or Jon Rahm are going to be grouped with, I expect them to get out of any group that they go in. You might like 12-1 odds. It's certainly longer than what we've seen each of them in the last couple of weeks, and it's a limited field. So I definitely will not be taking that approach, but I definitely could understand people saying, I just want the odds on favorite. And if I see double digits next to Justin Thomas or Jon Rahm's name, I'm going to scoop it. But I would definitely recommend waiting until the odds are officially released on Monday. So be on the lookout for that. There's definitely a less heralded Selection Monday show, but it will be live streamed, I believe, on Twitter. I'm not exactly sure who broadcasts it, but I'm sure you'll hear of it. I believe it's around noon on Monday. They should be releasing the actual groups. But more on the groups. We'll move on to the tournament format for the Dell match play. So in a perfect world, the top 64 official world golf ranked players would be here. Of course, there are going to be scheduling conflicts or just players who withdraw. So this year, there were 5 players who withdrew from the event. So just going off the top of my head, but I believe Rory McIlroy, Cam Smith, Hideki Matsuyama, Harris English, who's injured, and Phil Mickelson are not here. So the best 64 available world ranked players will be in the field this week. And then just the way the format goes, if you're not familiar, it's group play, round robin style. So there's 16 groups of 4 to make up the full 64 field. Everybody plays each other once. Whoever's the best record advances to the field of 16 out of that group. And it's in bracket style, so you'll know who you're sort of matched up against at that point. And yeah, if there's a tiebreaker, I believe it goes to a playoff. We had a couple of those last year, but in terms of handicapping the tournament, it's really who do you think has the best chance to get out of that first bracket? And then, it's sort of you hope for the best at that point, because you're not going to know who you're going to face off in the following round. It's not that easy to predict. So what I'm going to do is wait and see when the groups are released, kind of identify the groups that I think are most winnable, where I think there's the least resistance from players at the top. And then, cross your fingers, because it's a lot of luck required to figure this out correctly. But it is a fun tournament if you land on the right guys. And then lastly, I guess I would just close by saying, after watching the tournament last year, it definitely starts out hot, and Wednesday through Friday is very exciting. And you get to see all your guys 1v1, and it's a fun watch, definitely, to get the golf out early. But once you get to the weekend, it's a little anticlimactic, because it's less golf shots. It's more sort of dead air. The players get tired on the fourth and fifth day of golf. So it's not my favorite, closing weekend. Maybe a more productive weekend. Probably good that I'm on my not my bachelor party. I'll be on a bachelor party over the course of the weekend. So I won't be glued to this, and there's more March Madness to watch too. But I'm really hoping that I have sweat on somebody, because that's really what you need to stay invested in this sort of format over the weekend. But yeah, so then moving on to betting strategy. So definitely a different strategy when it comes to handicapping a match play event versus a standard stroke play event, which is, stroke play is going to be 95% of every week we do in the handicapping on tour. So with match play, way more randomness. That's why I don't think there really was such thing as a conviction bet when we had the Ryder Cup. That's why the Team Europe has won so many Ryder Cups despite not having as much talent, because there's randomness, and you don't have to be the best player to have the best matchup record. There's certainly, subjective gamesmanship things that certain guys just get under other guys' skin. There's something about Sergio Garcia in match play where all of a sudden he's able to hit every putt, and he's one of the best match play putters, and he's the worst match play stroke play. He's the worst stroke play putter there is. Some of those things just don't really make sense. But match play just brings a certain animal out of you, and some people either have it or they don't. So we'll sort of go through some of the players who stand out from a match play record standpoint, whether it be this event, the Dell match play, Ryder Cups, or President's Cups. But yes, in terms of betting strategy, I like to just load up on a bunch of long shots. If you looked at last year, 50% of the brackets had the lowest seed advance from them out of the first round. So it really goes to show you anything can happen in this event. So I like loading up on those 80-1 plus guys, pick 4, 5, or 6 of them, really underexposed on the card, and then maybe try to reload after the round of 16 when you have a better view of how guys were performing. It's not the sexiest approach to this. It's very different from how I would approach a typical stroke play week in terms of unit allocation, but I think it's kind of necessary from betting perspective, because like I said, 15 out of 16 top seeds in last year's tournament did not advance out of the first round, which is just crazy, and not the same sort of volatility that we would even see in a March Madness. It really is it's sort of double randomness in terms of how to predict who's going to advance. So I'm definitely team long shots from a betting perspective. But to quickly touch on DFS, definitely a lot more game theory involved for DFS this week. This is from the get-go, if you're not picking one player from each of the 4 quadrants of the bracket in your 6-man lineup, you're already shot in terms of optimal most points you can possibly get. So a lot of people just feed into it a lineup optimizer, and it'll just spit out the 6 best players regardless of where they fall in the quadrant. They might have 3 guys in the same quadrant and none from another. The upside there is so limited. So you can weed out a lot of the competition by just either manually hand building these lineups, or if you have an optimizer that you can program to not double stack too much of one quadrant. Those sort of things you need to be careful with this week, but definitely an edge to be had. And this is one of the weeks that I definitely lean most heavily into DFS, just understanding that it's hard to have a lot of conviction in the betting market. And yeah, I guess the last thing I would say in terms of approach is I'm not placing a single bet until I see the pools. So I'm not going to be one of those people who sees a number and wants to jump on it early. You will get better drift across the books once all the information is out there and all the books are posted on. So I would definitely recommend waiting until Monday, even though it is a Wednesday start. I definitely recommend waiting until Monday to see what those odds open at and see if you can shop around for some good value. Cool. So then looking at the field at a glance, I think I got ahead of myself earlier, but top 64 available world golf ranked players will be in this field. So those are the 5. I got them right off the top of my head. There they are. Cam Smith, Rory Hideki, Harris English, and Phil Mickelson will not be here. They're either taking the rest before the Masters, or they're recovering from an emotional high like Cameron Smith, or they're Phil Mickelson and they're not allowed to be here for whatever reason the tour wants to drum up. So because those 5 are out, the next 5 available world ranked golfers, so that would be ranked 65 to 69, find their way back in this tournament. So that's Munoz, my boy, Keegan Bradley, Robert McIntyre, Keith Mitchell, and Sepp Straka are now in essentially as alternates. And there's now some speculation. I'm glad that we're doing the video version of this because this is new information post publishing the article. But Maverick McNeely was the last man out. He is not officially in, but he has officially withdrawn from Corrales and made his way to Austin. So I'm speculating that he knows that somebody else is about to withdraw. If I had to guess, I would say it's Sam Burns. He just won the Valspar. He got all the money from the Valspar, all the FedEx Cup points from the Valspar. Those are the 2 most appealing things about a WGC. He's in great standing in the FedEx Cup. I think he could take this week off and focus on Augusta, which is in 2 weeks for the Masters. So would not surprise me at all if Sam Burns withdrew, and definitely would not surprise me if Maverick McNeely already knows that he's going to be in for somebody else that speculates to withdraw. I think it would be kind of crazy if he rolled the dice and withdrew from Corrales without knowing that. But we will find out in the next couple of days. And he could be an interesting play here, Matt McNeely, aggressive player that could, hit a lot of putts in match play. I don't know what his match play record is, but it seems like that type of player that could do well here. And then past winners in the field. So we've only had the match play here since 2016 at Austin Country Club. But Billy Horschel is the defending champ. He's back. Kevin Kisner won in 2019. Watson won in 18. Johnson won in 17. Jason Day is the only one that's won here that is not eligible to come back. And Ian Poulter is a winner of this event, but it was back at Dove Mountain in 2010. Poulter is a guy who always plays well in match play formats, really regardless of the venue. Recall that he really beat up Rory McIlroy in quick work last year, which surprised a lot of people. So don't rule out Ian Poulter. He could be an interesting value play this week. Moving on to an introduction to the course of Austin Country Club. I really like this course. I think it's definitely a Pete Dye design. You'd be able to tell, but just by looking at it, a lot of pop bunkers, a lot of complex angles that you have to take. Does a really good job of neutralizing the field for not really being able to overpower it. There's a lot of danger if you try to bomb and gouge it. So it's definitely not a course to be overpowered, which you would think like not a Bryson DeChambeau course, but Bryson's very good at really like underrated at taking a course that mitigates distance and playing into that. So he had a tough go last year, but I actually think as long as he's healthy, he could be an interesting play this week. Tends to just play Pete Dye course as well in general. And then just going into, I guess, some of the past courses. So we've been here since 2016. It has rotated since or just around 2000 across 3 or 4 different courses, including TPC Harding Park, which hosted the PGA Championship in 2020, I believe. And but since then, it's been in Austin Country Club ever since 2016. So we're starting to get some pretty good data on, or not, I guess not data, but we're starting to get building records of performance at Austin Country Club, which should be helpful over time to sort of pick out who sets up the best to play here without the strokes gain data. And then just kind of looking at the hole by holes, I'm not going to lean too much into this sort of hole by hole breakdown, but there's a bunch of short par fours under 400 yards, and there's a bunch of long ones. So do with that what you will. I don't think we need to hone in on any sort of proximity numbers here. I'm not going to overanalyze the models at this course. But I guess the last piece from an agronomy standpoint, the greens are Bermuda. They're overseeded with POA. Very similar to what we just saw at Innisbrook. Very similar to what we saw at TPC Sawgrass. Also similar to TPC River Highlands and the stadium course where the Amex was played. So you might want to look at how people putt. Their putting is so crucial here. So definitely want to lock in on the guys who you know can putt well on this surface. Horschel and Kisner are two of the best putters on tour, and they've won the last 2 years. So definitely some merit in that. And yeah, beyond just Horschel and Kisner, Jason Day and Dustin Johnson, two other really dependable putters. So in general, really important to be like a reliable, confident putter over these like sort of knee knocker distances. I think in the short history of this event at this course, that's really what it's taken to have success. So then going on to the club course specs, I'll go through these a little more quickly, but it's under 7,200 yards. It's a par 71. We talked about Bermuda. It's a Pete Dye course. Comps well to the other short Pete Dye courses, and already discussed some of the past winners. This is a snippet of the scorecard if you want to look at the hole by holes. And then two narratives that I was kind of looking out for last year at this event, the lefties and the Longhorns. It's kind of crazy that all of them advanced to the round of 16 after such a volatile tournament, but all three lefties advanced last year. All three lefties are back, and all three Longhorns advanced last year, and Spieth and Scheffler are back. Excuse me. So besides Fratelli, everybody else is back. So you could sort of run back that narrative if you want. And if you wanted to be a little more generous beyond just the Longhorns and just chase a sort of Texas narrative, you could also look at Zalatoris, Hoagie, Reed, and Bryson, who are also from Texas. So moving on to event history and course comps. There's not a ton of strokes gain data that we're going to go off of this week. So a lot of this is really just using the eye test. But what I really want to look for going into this event is guys who are in good form and guys who have played well in match plays before. And I'm not too concerned if it's match play, but it's at a super long course like we just saw at Whistling Straits. If you play well in match play there, you can play well in match play here. So just looking at the best match play players, Kevin Kisner, I think to little surprise, is a great match play player. That was sort of the basis of his Ryder Cup campaign. This is a short course. He plays well on short courses. I was not in favor of Kisner on the Ryder Cup team at Whistling Straits because he'd be the first to tell you can't compete on a long course. But this is a course that he's had a lot of success on. He's won here. So he could be interesting. I'm not sure what his pricing is going to be, but his form is good. And obviously he's played well here before. So I'll be keeping an eye on where he goes. And beyond Kisner, just a list of other guys who also have good match play history. I think Alex Noren is one that really jumped out to me. I didn't realize how good he was in match play. And he's in the sort of fourth tier here. So him and Ian Poulter are actually both two sort of under the radar group 4 guys that could find themselves in a sort of group of death, if you will. So then going on to the course comp. So Just to simply put, I'm just going to look at Pete Dye courses, the short ones specifically. So Sawgrass, River Highlands, Stadium Course, and Harbor Town. The Pete Dye guys in this field that you might expect: Paul Casey, Brian Harmon, Bryson DeChambeau, Bubba Watson, Dustin Johnson, maybe Siwoo Kim. He's usually a good Dye guy. He's sort of in the mix too. So that's kind of my early lean for just guys who might play a profile like this well. And then key stats. So most tournaments, this will be a lot more robust, and this will be a lot more prescriptive, I guess, to a model. This week, it's really just directional for reference, very broad stats this week. Again, I'm not going to feed in a model and play whoever it spits out, because so much of match play is subjective. There's so much randomness in it. But this is meant to sort of guide you in the right direction. So I guess to start, there's 4 stat categories that I really care about this week. It's Pete Dye course history, strokes gained tee to green on short courses, so under 7,200 yards, putting on Bermuda, and just recent form coming in. I'm looking at last 24 rounds just to be super recent. Because I'm also going to look at world golf ranking, and that should sort of cover you on the long-term form angle. So I won't list off all the names. They are here in the article, but this is just a list of guys who are coming in good form from tee to green. And this is also just a list of the best Pete Dye and short course guys. And then going on to the top 10 Bermuda putters, I think that's actually so much more important this week than any other week when we're trying to identify the guys who putt well. If you look at this list of good Bermuda putters, it's Kisner, Johnson, Horschel, Scheffler. These are all guys who have found themselves at the top of the leaderboard at this event. So you have to be a confident Bermuda putter. So it's not a week that I'm really going to be chasing any team no putt guys that can ball strike their way through this event. It's really not going to happen. You're going to have to hit putts at a high level. So definitely looking for putting specialists this week more than ever. And then lastly, a little nuance to this model. I basically took the initial model that I ran, and then I put it in an Excel. And I made a manual model of world golf ranking and match play performance. So if a guy is, let's say Kevin Kisner, he's the best match play player in this field, I gave him a 5. And if you're, let's see, Keegan Bradley, he's 1 in 10 in match play in his career, I gave him a 1. So kind of subjective ranking like that, but I used it to sort of give an up and down from the baseline model. That model gave out Justin Thomas as the number 1 player in this field. I think that makes a lot of sense. He's always on Ryder Cup teams. He's in great form. I was on him at Valspar. He came up just short, but obviously the game's in tip-top shape. He's kind of peaking just before the Masters. So he's the favorite, as we said at the top. I think he's peaking at the right time. And no real surprises in the rest of this top 10. I guess the biggest surprise might be Horschel, but he's 1 here. So I think that kind of justifies what we're looking at to profile success in a player. And then lastly, we move on to finding value in each tier. So they might be called pools or pods or tiers, depending on where you look. But basically, the way that these fields are going to be decided is the top 1 to 16 players will be in one tier, 17 to 32, or second tier, and so on. So you're not going to get 2 players who are top 10 in the world in the same pod. They're going to break it out that way. But I wanted to kind of look in here and parse out who's going to be a value player, where if they're really strong for their ranking, they might be in a group that you want to target them in. Or vice versa. If somebody's really poor in the rankings, but they're 1 seed and maybe they actually should be a 3 seed, then that's the type of group that I'm going to target value players in with a little bit less resistance to go up against. So I think we could skip all the way to just the first tier. So here in this chart, you can see each player's world golf ranking and where they ranked out in my model. So this is something new I tried out just for this event, just to kind of, I guess, contextualize how good they are compared, like right now for this course compared to their world golf ranking, because they're assigned a top tier based on the world golf ranking alone. So maybe an opportunity to find value. I think Patrick Cantlay is probably the guy I would look out for. I'm not going to bet this low, but if I was to bet this like a normal week of stroke play, Patrick Cantlay's probably a potential buy low, like an 18-1 guy. I believe he's somewhere in that range. He'd be interesting. He's a scary guy to go up against in match play. Rates out really well, second in my model behind Justin Thomas. So definitely a lot of reasons to like Patrick Cantlay this week. On the other hand, Tyrrell Hatton seems to be the lowest ranked in my model. He's played in a good number of Ryder Cup events and match play events, but doesn't have the best match play record. And he's in fine form right now, but definitely does not seem to be as threatening as the other guys in this range. So Hatton's definitely the guy. Whatever pod he's in, I think will be one of the weaker ones that people will try to target a cheaper player in, whether it's for DFS or betting. So then going on to tier 2, standing out here is Shane Lowry, who's actually the last man in this tier. But he rated out 13th in my model. Really peaking at the right time, could have easily won the API popular bet at the Players and seemed just fine there. So it stacks up very well for this course, plays well on short courses, pretty good Pete Dye history. Not the strongest of putters, but he's a grinder. It would not surprise me to see him go on a run in an event like this. A few guys I would definitely target against here. Tony Finau is just reeling right now, just does not look the way he should. Thomas Pieters is a real question mark. He's actually he played in the Ryder Cup a few years ago and actually looked pretty good in that Ryder Cup, but big question mark. We don't really know what you're going to get with Thomas Pieters, and this definitely is not a Bombers course. So I think we'll probably want to try to target against him. Webb Simpson could potentially be hurt. So he's another target. A lot of guys in this tier 2 that are not very intimidating, just looking through them, but Sung Jae and Lowry and probably Paul Casey are 3 guys that I like the most in this range. So it'll be interesting to see what their value is. And then going to tier 3, it's Russell Henley that actually stands out from model standpoint. The purpose of this model was to add in some like subjective, but can this guy win in match play safeguards? And even despite that, he's still 12th. So I think it's interesting. If this were a stroke play event, I think a lot of people would love Henley on this course. You have to worry about the mental fortitude. With Henley, can he really go toe to toe with somebody in a 1v1 and beat them and hit a bunch of high pressure putts? I don't know, but at least in DFS, I think you're going to get decent odds. I would assume because he should be in a pool with 2 players who are ranked ahead of them from world golf rankings. So definitely somebody that I'll be keeping an eye on. I love Tom Hoagie. I could definitely see myself going back to him. Sergio is automatic, it seems to be, in these stroke play events. It'll be interesting where they price him. Justin Rose, another veteran I believe he has also won the WGC Dell match play at a different event. A different course. And yeah, Matt Wolff, I just don't think this is the right course for him. I'll be targeting against him. Herbert, I like him on bomber courses. This is certainly not, so I'll be targeting against him. Similar with Cameron Young, although he's surprised wherever he's gone, but I don't think this suits his game the best. And Lee Westwood, I think he's here on world golf ranking by what he did towards the end of last year or middle of last year, but hasn't really shown any of that recently. So I think he'll be a target against as well. And then lastly, going to the 4th tier, some guys I think that I'll like in this range, definitely Alex Noren and Bubba Watson. Alex Noren should probably be one of the most popular plays this week when all is said and done. He'll be the fourth man in his group, and whichever group he's in might end up automatically being the group of death. Believe he had a good finish at the Valspar this week, and he had 2 top 5s going into that in his last 4 starts. So his game's in the right place. He has a great record in match play, and his game suits this course. Really good short game and a good iron player. So plenty to like about Alex Noren. In addition to him, Brian Harman was also in contention today. So he always plays P-tie courses well. He should be an interesting play as a fourth man at the bottom of his group. Siwoo Kim plays dive courses great. He'll be interesting. Robert McIntyre advanced last year. He was just barely snuck in. He's outside the top 64 world ranking, so he just barely got in, but he could be interesting here. Bubba Watson's won here before. So a lot of value guys. I'm definitely interested to see where their pricing goes. And definitely guys that I'll be eyeing primarily for DFS. Otherwise, plenty of duds down here, like Richard Bland. I don't give him any chance to win a match this week. Same with Kanaya. It's just very unlikely that these guys are going to make much noise on this course, but we'll see. Stranger things have happened. So it's bracketology. It's March Madness. Nothing's for sure, but I wouldn't bank on it. Cool. And then, just to wrap it up, I think I've essentially touched on these as well, but make sure you look out on Monday for the official groups to be announced. I'm excited to see where everybody falls. There's usually a lot of a good discourse of, fixed ping pong balls or whatever, when we have a group of death announced. So I'm excited to see who that group of death is. But it should be a fun event. I'll be posting a couple more articles this week for values and general final thoughts on the event, where I see the value at by Wednesday. And I think as a bonus, I probably will do a short piece on the Corrales Championship, which runs opposite this event. I'll put a small card out for that and a couple quick thoughts in my Wednesday article as well. But until then, thank you for listening. Excited to be doing more of these videos more regularly. Again, we'll see how I'm feeling at the end of Bachelor Party number 2 next week before the Valero Texas Open. But if not, then absolutely for the Masters and hopefully more often after that. So thank you for listening and good luck at the Dell match play this week.